Hello Groveland. Today's video is being done on July the 7th, 2020, and I thought I'd take an opportunity to talk about how the roads get done in the township and where the maintenance and the dollars are spent. I know in the past I've seen people make comments that think that it might be a little bit haphazard, but it's not. So let me tell you about how, first of all, you get a road paved in Groveland Township. There are 21 townships in Oakland County, and they all vie for the same bucket of money that is put out through what they call Public Act 51. There is a program that takes all of our tax dollars that goes for road work and sends it to the federal government, and then you've probably heard news stories that say about 98 cents of that come back. When it comes back to the state, they divide it up through this Public Act 51, and they determine where the money's going to get spent. In Oakland County, they take the money that comes back and they allocate enough from it every year to pave 1 mile of road in Oakland County. Now there's over 700 miles of road in Oakland County. So I jokingly tell residents when they ask, when's my road getting paved? Well, if you can live 700 years, you're going to see them all done. That's just the way it is. So that's the only bucket of money that comes back from the federal government for paving gravel roads. And they only allow you to pave what they call primary roads. And primary roads are pretty easy to identify. They were set up years ago by the Road Commission, and they're primarily the roads that are used to designate the traverse routes between communities so that you can go east and west or north and south through a community. In the case of Groveland Township, the east and west traverse routes are Groveland Road, Grange Hall Road, and Oak Hill Road. Those are the only three roads that are primary roads going east and west. Going north and south through the township, there's really one route. It's Wildwood Road to Barron Road, and then from Barron to the double turns on Groveland Road and up a little piece of Van to get into Genesee County. Those are the only roads that you can appropriate money from the Federal Aid Surface Funding Committee, which I've been on for years, to get paved. So when you wonder how they get done, that's really it. You might have a secondary road that you think is more important, but the federal government won't give you the money for those roads. And the reason we work on those roads first is because when we get a project aligned for one of those roads, they actually give you the money for 80% of the project, and the Road Commission of Oakland County puts another 10% in. So in other words, we spend $1 million, we have to come up with $100,000 in Groveland. The $900,000 comes up from the federal and the county. Now, that allows us to be able to get something done, and these projects are extremely expensive. The other criteria when you're doing a federal aid program is they don't do any roads paved to secondary standards. They only do road paving projects that are done to the very highest standard. So if you look at the projects we've had done in Groveland, you'll see in many cases they're curbed and guttered. They redo the culverts and the streams that run through them so that they're in better condition. When the government gets done, it's a top-notch program. But most of them, frankly, are $1.5 million to $2.5 million a mile to get done. Now, we've done a number of these projects here in Groveland since I've been supervisor. Just to go over them, you'll probably remember. We repaved M15 some years ago. We've repaved Grange Hall twice since I've been here. We rebuilt Tripp Road last year completely, and that was a real mess. We've repaved Dixie Highway last year, and we repaved the old section of Groveland Road that was paved back in the 70s 2 times. We've also got planned for 2021 all of Barron Road, which is really 2 years projects put together, and that will get rid of the 15-foot unsafe visibility hill that exists on Barron Road. We've paved Oakwood, and we've also added a traffic signal there, and we've added a north turn lane, which improves the flow of traffic at rush hours over there. We've paved 2 of the worst sections of gravel road, and that's how they got picked. The very worst section of gravel road in the whole township from a maintenance perspective was Oak Hill Road from Dixie to Kyer. We wanted to pave that first but couldn't get an agreement with Springfield originally because it's half in their township. So we went to the second worst piece of road in the township, and that was Groveland Road from Jossman to Barron. It had a huge list of complaints in a winter that was really bad on the roads, and so we paved that one, and then we went back and we approached Springfield again on doing Oak Hill, and we got that done. That's how those 2 roads both got paved. Now, in addition to that, what we need to do is address the fact that long term, the only other roads that will get done will be those I mentioned earlier. Someday we will try and do Wildwood all the way up to Grange Hall, and we will try and do some more of Groveland Road, and we will try and do some more of Oak Hill. But again, keep in mind, you only get funding for a mile to a mile and a half per year for the whole county. So little Groveland Township, that's got the smallest population, has to vie and compete with these other communities that have much bigger populations, much larger traffic groups, but we seem to do pretty darn good, and I think it's because I've spent so many years on the Surface Funding Committee that virtually everybody in Oakland County knows who I am. That's how the paving gets done in the township, and that's how we've gotten pretty much every piece of paved road we have paved, as well as some additions. We also did approaches from several of the gravel roads, so that where a car starts off on a gravel road, as it gets ready to go onto a paved road, it's got a hard surface and it doesn't get tore up. We did several of those, like Brant Road and Buckle Lake Road and Perryville Road, for example. There's really only one more gravel to paved road approach we need to do, and we're waiting on that because of some additional things that are happening on the road right now. That's how we pick the programs for the roads. The other things that we do are we take care of the gravel roads by laying down 5 loads of chloride throughout the summer instead of 4, and there's a charge for that, obviously. And we also put fresh gravel down every year on some roads. This year, for example, because we didn't do it last year when they jacked the price of the gravel way up, we're going to do 6 miles this year. So we're putting down about $200,000 of road gravel later this year to help some of the roads that need it the most. That, with the chloride, keeps our roads in pretty good shape. And the way we kind of check this is, there's a chart that we'll put up on this video a little bit later, but to show you, it's all of the communities that the Road Commission takes care of for complaints on the roads. And out of the communities that we're serviced under and part of, Brandon had 528 road complaints in the first 6 months of this year. Springfield had 302 complaints. Rose Township had 215. Holly had 145. And Groveland, again, was the best in class, and we usually are. We only had 138. So if you try and compare our roads to the others in the area, you can see clearly we have much fewer complaints than they do, and we're typically the lowest, or at worst, second from the lowest, but usually the lowest. We spend a lot of money on our roads to keep them in as good a shape as possible. There's no other way to get a road paved unless you want to do a tax increase or a special assessment increase. And the problem out here, where we all love living in these wide open spaces, is that a special assessment to do a pavement project would typically make somebody's house payment look like a rounding error in your checkbook. And the fact's just that's just what they are. When you've only got maybe 20 houses on a mile of road and your project's going to cost you $2 million to do it, you can figure out what the assessment's going to be, and it gets pretty staggering. We can't go to the federal government on the secondary roads. So what we do is put gravel on the roads to try and keep them in good shape, use 5 applications of chloride, and obviously every year is a little bit different. You get a real rainy year, you're going to get some soupy, washed out sections. You get a real dry year, it's going to get dustier, because they're still limited to the 5 applications of chloride. They don't just do it every day that it gets dry. They put it down, and when it's real dry, you get it soaked in much quicker. But that's how we keep roads up to shape. We put chloride on them 5 times instead of 4. We dump fresh gravel on several miles of road every year to try and keep them built up and in good shape so that they can be properly graded. And then on the paved roads, on the primary roads, we strive to get our projects fit in there. It typically takes me, on the short side, I'd say 4 years, and on the long side, 7 years from the day I start petitioning the Surface Funding Committee to do one of our roads to the day it actually has a paving truck show up to do the project itself. It just takes that long, and you have to remember, we're vying against everybody else for that same 1 mile. So I hope that answers the questions for you, Groveland. Our roads are in really fantastic shape and the best they've ever been. Our pavement is in awesome shape because we've got more now than we ever had. The only piece of pavement that hasn't been redone so far is the section of Grange Hall Road from Dixie to the Viaduct. So I hope that answers the questions for you. If you have any others, please feel free to call me at the office at your convenience. And until the next day, have a great time, Groveland. Thank you.